And welcome back. Continuing to work on the right aileron. In this video we'll finally get it completed. So what you see me doing here is getting ready to attach the spar to the forward nose ribs. And that's done with pop rivets at each of the ribs. For the most part, this process is not too bad. Like I said before in the previous video, I want to say total hours spent putting the aileron together. I would estimate somewhere between 12 to 18 hours altogether, real time. Like I said before, a lot of it's just small, tedious work. The biggest point of this portion here is attaching the skins to the spar. And when you're doing it, you want to make sure that you keep everything lined up, because the skins will obviously twist as there's no actual rib structures other than the stiffeners. And so you make a point of trying to make sure to keep everything as straight as you can as you're riveting to the spar. And as you can see, what I'm doing here, the skin goes in between the leading edge skin and the spar. And then once you get it fit in between, click everything together, and then eventually you'll see me put a angle piece on the trailing edge of the skins to try to keep it straight, as you see here. And then, as you typically want to do, start out from the middle and kind of work your way out. That way you can kind of spread the metal out and minimize any chance of pillowing as you go along. So for these skins, on the outer skin, I use a standard dimple die. On the spar and all of the substructure, I actually use the substructure die for the size 40 hole, and it creates a slightly larger dimple for the skin dimple to sit in, so it's a little more flush. I've had pretty good experience with it so far. You definitely want to make sure that you don't accidentally use the substructure dimple die on the skins, because it'll create a larger dimple and it won't sit in quite as well. But as far as the ribs and the spars and everything that's underneath the skin, it works pretty well to get the skin to sit a little more flush. And I want to say it's something like 11 thousandths or maybe even smaller a difference, but it's just slightly larger. So now just going through and attaching the end ribs to the spar. I actually had to get a new, I guess you call it rivet attachment for the rivet gun. I had to get a longer riveter, as you see here, the black rivet tool on the end of the rivet gun there. I think this is a 5 or 6 inch rivet tool. I just couldn't get the other piece in between the leading edge and the rib there, so I had to order new parts. And I had some, I want to say they're like 10-inch long riveters, but I'm not sure where they have gone, so I had to go get this new piece. So now, putting on the aft or the bottom skin. Again, I had made, by mistake, I had basically made a left aileron bottom skin before, so now I just had to make sure I had the right one. So going through, again, attaching every other hole, and then using the trailing edge to keep the trailing edge of the top skin to keep the trailing edge of the bottom skin straight. And then I believe the instructions, if I recall correctly, they basically have you rivet every 10th. Oh yeah, here I'm verifying that the trying to make sure there's no twist in the aileron. And the instructions tell you that there's a certain amount of twist that you can have. I want to say it's like a 1/16 of an inch over the length of the aileron. But anyway, the instructions, they have you, if I recall correctly, rivet every 10th hole and then rivet at random from there when you're riveting the skin to the bottom side of the spar. And my assumption is that's just to try to, I guess, maximize the chance of getting it straight and not putting a twist into the skin. And then also, as usual, just working from the inside out to try to minimize pillowing and kind of working the metal out as best you can. But that was the only thing I can think of is why the instructions were specific in that way. Like I said, I want to say it was like every 10th rivet hole it instructed you to rivet, and then at random from there. And so it's a little more difficult because you're having to reach inside with the bucking bar and trying to rivet and make sure, look inside and make sure that you got a good rivet. But once you get all that complete, then it's a matter of just closing everything out. So as I'm working here, again working on the right wing. I've got the right spar completed. The ribs are attached to the right spar. I've got the right rear spar mostly completed. I was waiting on some parts. I had to replace one of the ribs on the wing. I accidentally drilled an incorrect hole and enlarged an existing hole, so it was not usable. But from there, I've got, like I said, this is now complete, the right aileron, and now I'm working on actually putting the top skins onto the right wing. I got all the parts I was waiting for, and have put the rear spar onto the rest of the assembly, and now I'm working on the top skins. So the biggest problem I had, I think, with these pop rivets, the rod, I guess, that the pop rivet tool uses to squeeze the rivets, some of them were broke about halfway, and so I had to go and get some side cutters and cut them down. I'm gonna have to file the ends of those down. But on the nose here, as you're riveting these, the instructions actually tell you to take a hammer or something and basically round off the ends of the rivets, the rivet heads. That way, as the aileron rotates in its place, it doesn't rub up against the skins of the wing. As I put this together, I didn't notice that they really stuck out too much, but I will let it at a later point go back and just get a small, ball peen hammer or something and just round off the heads of those rivets. So here, just putting the trailing edge together. You have the wedge that's in place. I don't believe that the instruction called for any kind of tape or anything like that to go along with this. I'm actually, now that I think about it, I'm going to have to go back and verify, make sure I didn't accidentally forget that. But I don't really think that it's necessary one way or the other, because you're not really trying to seal anything, I don't think. So, but I'll double check. I don't recall if it required it on this step or not. So anyway, like I said, this is the finish of the right aileron. I'm going to go ahead and let this video run out here. For those that continue to watch these videos, I appreciate it. If you get a chance, hit that like button for me. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and the alarm bell that goes with it, and you'll get notifications every time I put these videos out. I've been having fun putting these together and just kind of allowing people to follow along as I'm putting together this RV-14. It's been a fun process so far. So anyway, we'll see you guys next time.